Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to see so many of you back. Why, one talks what's on one's mind, and one emphasizes certain things, and then realizes at the end that one forgot to talk about something that was also important. One of the ladies here asked me whether I would say something about about the art or the craft of pedaling in playing Bach's music, and also about dynamics, about expressive dynamics. I think the matter of pedaling, will be related to the matter of what might be called tone ideal. Tone ideal. That sounds very fancy and philosophical and so forth, but I can put it in plainer English if I say that tone quality, the kind of tone that people like to hear, is a matter of fashion as much as anything else. All sorts of things get to be fashionable and unfashionable, even body shapes. There were times and places when it was fashionable to be very ample. You had a lot of fat on you and were big and so forth, and that seemed to indicate that you were rich and healthy, and that was fine. Then you get a generation which disapproves of this, and everybody wants to be thin as a rail. That gives the impression of energy and athletic control and so forth. Anyhow, the fashions change, and the fashions in tone quality change. Now, before the middle of the 18th century, the thing that was demanded of a tone was distinctness, absolute lack of any ambiguity in the statement of a tone. A is A, and C is C, and hooray for the difference. This was the idea. The whole fun of the music consisted in having A different from C or different from B, and then enjoying the relationship between the two. Now, as time wore on, the 18th century then came to an end, and the 19th came in, and you get a recrudescence of romanticism and a desire for the infinite, a yearning for endlessness, and the philosophers then would tell you, well, if you say A is A and B is B, and they're different, why then that's all very well superficially, but you're a very shallow fellow if you insist on that. Now, A isn't just A. A has got all kinds of partial vibrations in it. The first overtone is an octave higher, and the second one is an E, a fifth higher, and so forth. And first thing you know, when you get to the ninth overtone, you'll have B. So your B is already in the A. And the kind of a sound you want to make is a sound in which any tone you make might sort of be capable of merging with any other tone. In other words, if the old-fashioned ideal, the Baroque ideal, was one of distinctness, that is separateness, the Romanticist ideal was one of blend. And this, of course, accounts for the fact that the piano superseded the harpsichord. The harpsichord makes a nice, clean, distinct sound, and the piano tends to make a fuzzy one. And the trend was all for a fuzzy sound. As we get into the 20th century, why the Baroque ideal of tone seems to be coming up again. We now seem to enjoy separation of tones, perhaps more than our grandparents did. Now, what has that got to do with the pedal? Well, the fact is that the pedal, which prolongs the sonority and enables it to blend with other sonorities, would have to be used rather sparingly if you want to give a good representation of the spirit of Bach's music. Rarely is there any need for a blend, even where the thing might seem natural. Let's take the simple chord, the 1, 3, 5, 8. every time such a combination occurs is not an opportunity for just making it blend into one mush, not at all. Let's take one of the French suites, which has an allemande ends like. Now it would be quite inappropriate to put a pedal down to blend these tones together. No. This is the wrong kind of a color for this music. It's aren't they nice when you separate them like that? You can enjoy the relationship. Of course, it's a simple triad relationship, but you must enjoy the relationship of separate units, not mush them all together. Well, now under the circumstances, would you say you cannot use the pedal at all in playing Bach? No, I wouldn't say so. The pedal may be used here and there as a color effect. Sometimes it might be nice to have this fuzzy sound on one certain note or on a series of notes. It's quite possible that one might enjoy it as long as one doesn't blend together two things that were intended to be separate. The most important thing about any pedal at any time is, of course, not where you press it, not at all. The important thing about the pedal is how long do you hold it down? This is the thing. When you say somebody is using too much pedal, what are you trying to say? That means that he is holding one pedal down, any one pedal down too much. Paradoxically, if the more pedals, plural, the more pedals you use, the less pedal you have. Every time you press a new one, why, you wipe the old one out. So, this is the thing. If you see somebody playing Bach and going like this all the time, that's fine. Then he's not using too much pedal. He's changing all the time. He's wiping the dishes off. You understand? He's washing it off each time he does that. Well, so much for that. So the pedal can be used. Very often it gives special emphasis to certain accents. It might work. In that prelude that I played this morning, if you want to play forte, the short pedal, but you would never hold a pedal even over a complete quarter note. That's bad. That's very unpleasant. But a short. The other thing that I was asked to talk about was the matter of expressive dynamics in playing Bach's music. Well, I think the dynamics are useful partly for what is called expression, but even more for what I like to call syntax and emphasis. I think I mentioned that this morning. You can give certain slight stresses. Certain slight stresses will give you the contour of a rhythm. It is important to just give a dynamic differential in order to bring out rhythm. I think I showed you that with beginning on the weak beat. Which is a long note, and on a heavier beat, louder than these 2 30-seconds. Not that. That sounds flat-footed, but I don't know if you call that expression, or if that's just proper emphasis, proper formation. Proper delineation, we'll say, of melody. I don't know whether that would come under the head of expression or not. I think that what the lady who spoke to me meant by expression was this matter of making crescendos and diminuendos for certain emotional reasons. mean, as if indicating excitements and depressions and that kind of thing. I think that a little of that will go a long way in the case of Bach's music. The gradual shadings, I think, ought to be used with very considerable discretion. In place of that, however, I think a great many dynamic differentials can be made suddenly. Now, this, of course, was not impossible to some of the older instruments. It certainly was quite possible on the organ. You would just pull out a softer stop, and then you'd play more softly. But it would happen suddenly, not gradually. You could even give a certain illusion, you might say, or a certain impression of graduality by pulling out one stop after the other. You could play a few bars on this level, and then a few more on this level, and a few more on that level. In general, one could use what they used to call terrace dynamics rather than slope dynamics. In other words, changes of loud and soft could be made suddenly. It's more in character with the music. You play certain measures with one kind of dynamic, and then a few other measures louder or softer. I wouldn't rule out the gradual dynamics. They sometimes are useful in certain kinds of music by Bach. There are climaxes, for example, where you would try to make a gradual crescendo. For instance, in this prelude, this one. That would be a good place for it. The one form of expression that I would be very careful of using would be the diminuendo. The diminuendo. Now, there might be some places where it would be appropriate, but the one thing that would strike me as antagonistic to Bach's nature, his personal nature, would be the idea of rising to a climax, a high point, and then drooping toward an end. Let's say a climax not on a cadence, but before a cadence, and then drooping to a cadence. This gives an impression of resignation, of defeat, of relaxation, which I think is not congruous with this man's disposition. You find that our friend Czerny, in his edition, often shows a fade out at the end of many of the fugues, down to a pianissimo. Personally, I can't go with this. This strikes me as incorrect. For instance, the very first fugue. Maybe it's pretty, but this is so completely against the nature of that music. Yes. The answer is the end of a Bach piece is always yes. This is a positive character, and I'm opposed to final diminuendos. Now, of course, there are gentler pieces which are gentle all the way through, and there's no reason why they shouldn't end gently. There's still another point. Sometimes there can be a positive end and a real final sounding cadence, and then there can be a coda. Now, it's conceivable that one makes one's final cadence loud and then perhaps plays a bar or two softly after that. I don't know. I would say it was a dangerous thing. Well, so much for that. But just wanton shadings, crescendos and dynamics, crescendos and diminuendos, I don't think I'd approve of. For instance, the C minor French suite, if anybody wanted to play it. That would be a caricature, I think, of Bach, to do that. This kind of gush and swoon, you understand? It's more like this. Yes. One more thing. Distinctness is, of course, eminently desirable in playing Bach's music. But you know how that is. Distinctness, cleanliness, this is a virtue. But what do you do with a virtue? Do you go around talking about it all the time? Do you shout yourself hoarse about it? Why, no, you acquire it, and then you don't talk about it at all. You take it for granted. Now, I'm afraid there are people, pianists, who get the feeling that they're not letting everybody know that they're playing every note unless they hammer it out with great insistence. And there's no occasion to make, this is, I think, all wrong. There's no occasion to make ugly sounds just because you want to be sure you play every note. I have a slogan for it. I say your playing must be clean, but not mean. See? It's uncalled for, for instance, to play. This is not nice. It's. Clean but not mean. Well, all right. Now, yes, ma'am.
You said that there's no counterpoint in the dances of Bach.
Oh, I wouldn't say there's no counterpoint.
I thought that's what you said.
What I'm saying is that there is a certain amount of counterpoint, of course, but this is actually less essential. This is not the point of the dance.
Well, is this homophonic or this is not homophonic music?
It's fundamentally homophonic music. It's homophonic music. Well, now wait a minute. He has put a number of dances here and there. He has one which is really in the fugue form. That is right. The jig, for instance, of the G major partita. That is a fugue. Let's face it. It is a fugue. Yes. But in the French suites, I can't think of anything that is a fugue. Yes, of course, there are some counterpoints here and there, but they're not. That's not the essence of those pieces.
But every time you have a double stem note, you don't really need it all the way through. It simply would be a type of legato fingering.
Yes, the stems will not prove anything in those suites. They will not prove that there is a voice. Not at all. Not only that. But the rests will not prove that there is a real rest in the music very often. Just a moment. I played the E-flat suite for you yesterday. Now, that Allemand. You will find that every once in a while in that figure there is a 16th rest. And if you're trying to be a very good girl, you will take your hand off and make it sound like a da 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 do, da da dee da 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 do, da da dee da 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 do, da da dee dee. Yes, but that is, I don't think, is right. Actually, the next melody note is that note in the left hand, because the complete eight-note figure is the fundamental motive of the whole thing. Why should he have a rest then? Well, because this is his way of saying, play that note with the left hand. Don't use the right at that moment. But that doesn't mean it isn't melodic. Look, and when you get it is not. Just means you don't need to use the right hand. Look at the held notes all the way through. Wait a minute, I'll get back. It helps that top note. There's a voice there. He just wants to get that dissonance. That's all. Do you understand? This allemande. He has that. Separate steps. That's nothing but the same thing. He just wants a little legato, that's all. Now, there's a rest. It's not a real rest. This F sharp is part of the melody. Do you understand? Do you understand what I mean? In other words, the notation is not what it might seem under other circumstances. The stems do not indicate voices in these dance forms, except, of course, in pieces that are actually fugues, such as, I say, the jig in the fifth partita, for example, or the jig in the first French suite. Yes, that is actually in fugue form. And of course there are counterpoints. There's two-voice counterpoint. Very often there are melodies, but I don't think that's the essential part of the suites. They're fundamentally homophonic and symmetrical. They don't flow along like vocal music. Well, somebody else have any question about the nature of the piano? Some words I don't like. You talk about a pianist and says he has a beautiful touch. Well, I don't like that word touch. Touch is a mere contact sensation. You can't play a piano by touching it. Maybe in French it has that meaning, I don't know, but you can. I'm touching the piano now, but you don't hear it home. It's always a stroke. It's always a stroke. You don't have to really even be in contact with the key. There's a little demonstration I give sometimes. I play a melody with a pencil, the end of the pencil. Oh, it has to have an eraser on it, otherwise you'll hear noise. Without touching. stroke, this guy can produce shadings with the end of a pencil. Why not?
A lovely pencil.
Okay. Some other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have not been able so far to find out very much about the toccatas, the original toccatas of Bach.
Yeah.
Were they among his earliest compositions of Bach?
Yes, they are from his earlier period. And I think that, see, Bach, let me see, one of his earliest jobs was as an organist for about 6 years at the little town of Arnstadt. And there he, well, he did the usual things that organists were supposed to do. He played figured chorales, he accompanied the chorales when they were sung. Then he was expected to play introits, as it were, that is, introductions on the organ while the congregation was assembling, and recessionals and all this kind of thing. Now, the toccatas always strike me as, well, they are perhaps carefully worked out, but they give the impression of improvisations. The organist makes an improvisation before the service begins. And what does one do on an organ when one improvises? Well, the organ has considerable mobility, it can play notes fast, and then it's also very capable of polyphonic playing because of the various manuals and so on. So the toccata would be a kind of alternation of moods and styles within the same frame. You have rapid passages in a free style without meter, you understand? Then you have chords, heavy chords going in. Then you have rapid figuration but rather polyphonic, metrical, that kind of thing, and then polyphonic passages, somewhat slower. And this is your toccata. You alternate them. Rhythmically, I think, what you can tell students is they are partly tight and partly loose. Take a D major toccata. It begins loosely, although it's brilliant. It's a loose rhythm. And then it's tight and polyphonic. Then comes a sort of fantasy and recitative, that's loose again. Then comes the F sharp minor part, which is polyphonic, tight again. Another recitative, and then it ends up with that fugato on that funny little hen clucking thing. This is it.
Did he write them so that they could be played either on harpsichord or organ?
I believe so. Yes, I think so. I think that they are suitable for either organ or harpsichord. That is right, yes. As a matter of fact, yes, because I don't find anything in them that would indicate a pedal, the use of a pedal keyboard, you understand? Of course, there were organs without pedal keyboards in those days. So that made some kind of a difference. Yes, ma'am?
Could you give me a clue for memorizing modern music?
I'll give you a very good clue, but it may not be easy to follow. The main thing is to understand the music. And you have to understand it in spite of yourself. You have to understand all the things you don't like as well as those you do, you see. What you look for, actually, is anything you can think about quickly. Anything you don't have to think about too hard. That is to say, any similarities similarities, recurrences. You understand? If you can find them, that will help. If you can't, well, you have to just go into the muck and learn every note, that's all. Now, sometimes you learn every note. You can also learn the precise sound of dissonant combinations. It's possible to make packages in your head. Well, here's a Schoenberg piece I used to play, still do. All right. Anyhow, play it to yourself. See if you get the flavor of it, the precise flavor of that chord. Get rid of the notes as soon as possible. Take a look at them, and then get up your fingers. Then shut your eyes and play it, and try to hear every note. I roll. There are 2/4 there. Make patterns out of the seemingly unrelated notes in your own head. But I can't give you any other advice besides that. Of course, that's the completely far out stuff. You say modern music, if you get a composer like Bartók or like Prokofiev, and you find that it makes a lot of sense, even though some of the sounds are not the kind of sounds that Grandma used to make. But I think that you look for similarities, correspondences.
Do you consider the Bach fugue difficult to memorize?
Well, I guess so. I think so. I think I'll have to say that. I've memorized them long ago, and I know them pretty well. But I would say Bach fugues are rather different. There are no sounds in there that are startling. You just have to know how a fugue is put together. You have to know what room you're in. You have to know whether you're in the library or in the sunroom or in the dining room, and whether the books are in the library or in the sunroom, or, you know, it's like knowing parts of your own house. You have to know what comes next and so on. The problem in the Bach fugues is that almost no two measures, almost never, in any Bach fugue are the same. But they can be pretty close to being the same. And you can get stuck sometimes. You can lose your way. This is the pitfall. It's possible. I hate to talk about it because...
There are places in the fugue where if you don't follow the direction, you just keep going around in the same
Well, certainly, yes.
If you find those and isolate those spots.
How's that?
I say if you pick out those particular spots, though.
Yes, you're quite right.
Then
you're betting. And then if you know there are danger spots, and then you find out just exactly whether you turn in that direction or in that direction. Oh, definitely, yes. And then, of course, to play this music, you've got to keep your eyes on the boat. The enemy, again, is inattention. My advice to students is, you ought to be able to play this in your sleep, but don't. Yes. Well, all right, I appreciate your questions.